right, everybody. Hey, welcome to the show. Will Robertson, of course, filmfestivallive.com. Very excited to be here. Let me slow that down. Very excited to be here. It's going to be an awesome week, and if it isn't, then go back to sleep because we're taking prisoners, or not taking. You know what? We're going to get it done. Get her done. Uh, Today is a great show. I'm very excited because I know by my first 2 minutes talking to our guest today that it's just going to be, to make a quote, all the way live. It's going to be a lot of fun, and we're going to talk about a lot of different stuff. And the main thing of today is bob and weave, and that's what we're going to do. So if you're here watching the show, of course, filmfestivallive.com, myself and my good friend Sal Framandi. Can't say it wrong. He's Italian. I'll end up in the river with some shoes. Sal Framandi. Anyway, good friend of mine, and oprime.tv. If you don't know what oprime.tv is, then you're probably not a filmmaker, an actor, whatever, okay? Because oprime.tv is a place that I combined forces with because I had a show called Acting Up Radio. And bottom line is that he and I are putting it together because we realized something really important that, and I've been doing this for 40 years, we realized that film festivals are really the way for us, the normal people. I'm not an A-lister yet. And our filmmakers and our people out there, we're all creating on maybe iPhones. Yeah, that's my rig, by the way. I'll explain that later. It's cool. But whatever you're producing stuff on, I was working as a Fox Kids Club host for about 7 years. And I remember about in the middle of it this is the 90s, came a movie called Blair Witch. It wrecked the industry because they're like, hey, let's shoot it through dirty underwear. And now we've got a film. And the fact of the matter is that it changed everything for us. And what happened was, along with film festivals, is it allowed us to do what the big boys, I'm going to say big boys, eating caviar right now off my money. Anyway, I'm just saying, bottom line is that we can now be on that same level because I don't care if you're what film festival you're at, getting accolades for what you're doing, and then maybe seeing it on the big screen. Isn't that what it's all about? I think so. So that being said, I'm going to open up really quickly and tell you a really quick story. I was on set, and I got to tell you, I get really irritated with fellow actors when they tell me, well, I don't know what to do. I mean, I can't work my phone. What? I can't edit on iPhone. I can't. I'm tired of the I can'ts, okay? And when people tell me that, they go, oh, you know what? I wish I had some sort of way of getting to the directors and casting directors. And I said, you know what? You got something I didn't have when I started. I started off with black and white photos, bro. And the fact is that you learn how to market, because if you don't understand that in show business is the word business, then you're in the wrong business and you probably should go be a barista. Nothing wrong with that. I'm just saying. But the bottom line is that you got to take control of what you're doing. And I think our guest today is going to help with that too. And when we take a break, I'll show you what I did as an actor, and I do constantly to try to rattle the cage. It's either going to get me kicked out of the cage or it's going to get me exactly where I need to be. That's not important right now. We'll see that in a minute. All right, our only guest today, first guest, like I have many. Our guest today, I'm very excited. He is in Atlanta, so if you're an actor, you know that one. Being a successful actor, there's two things I say right now. If you have two things, I think you're golden. One, if you want to be an A-lister, you probably need a British accent. And number two, you probably need to be in Atlanta. And the fact is that I know our guest doesn't have a British accent, but I do know he's in Atlanta. I'm going to show you this. Take a look at this. We'll bring in our guest as soon as we get done with this. His name is Ty Hunt.
So people have asked me, why did I start Lighthawk? And the answer is pretty simple, honestly. I remember growing up watching things like Star Wars and like Lord of the Rings and Aliens and stuff like that with my father and my whole family, really. And absolutely loving those films. And it was one of those things where like it just captured my imagination beyond belief, and I just loved being immersed in that world, right? And creating new worlds. And so the only issue that I had with it was that I didn't really see people that looked like me in these roles. And I didn't understand it because, you know, I loved it. And so why wouldn't somebody else that looked like me love it as well, right? So I created Lighthawk to answer that question, to tell stories in those kind of worlds where we're not just the help, we're not the janitors, or we're slaves, or whatever the case may be. And while those stories are important to understand the history and where things have come from and where things have progressed, for me I never really gravitated towards those kinds of stories. And my mind was always going to the superhero stuff, or the sci-fi stuff, things that were way outside what the norm was. And I think that's what I really want to accomplish, is to change the narrative, because we can do these roles. We can be the wizard, we can be the superhero, we can be the whatever. Just because we have a darker skin doesn't mean that we can't do it, right? And so those are the kind of stories that I naturally gravitate towards. And I know other people have as well. I mean, I remember reading something on Reddit where somebody said the same exact thing that I just said. I'm sick of seeing us as slaves. I'm sick of us being, the help and that kind of stuff. So audiences are ready for something different as well. But even beyond that, the business side of it, the studios are like, hey, we need more content like this. We need more creation like this. And so I started Lighthawk to fill that niche, because that's something that I naturally do. Even before I even considered being a director, I was already thinking about stories like that and living in stories like that. It really boils down to, not wanting to see us in the same old roles over and over and over again. That's what I really created Lighthawk to do.
Okay, first of all, welcome to the show, Ty.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Appreciate it.
Second of all, I'm gonna have you send me one of your shirts, because it's a very dope
Yeah.
shirt. I'm a medium. I'll buy it. I don't care. That is a very dope shirt.
Awesome.
Very
Thank you.
cool.
That is amazing.
Man, I was like, oh man, I would feel like an Avenger in that thing.
What's funny? I actually designed it off of the Shield logo
Oh,
from
did you?
the first Avengers movie. Yeah, so it's kind of a mix between that and the Air Force, which is where my father, he was very much in the Air Force as well. So it's kind of like a mix between those kind of logos.
Very cool. Hey, did you serve at all?
I went to Marine Corps boot camp, made it like 2 weeks away from graduation, and I broke my foot. And so it was such a frustrating thing, because like I was so close to being like the first Marine in my family. And so they're like, hey, so you're gonna be on the on Paris Island longer than you're technically supposed to. So you have two choices: either we can baby you the entire way through for the rest of the 2 weeks, or we send you home. And at this point, I'm like, Mr. Marine Corps. So I'm like, no, I can't. You're not gonna baby me. I'm gonna earn this crap. And so they sent me home, and then I tried to go back a couple times, and they're like, nah, brother, this isn't for you. So I didn't get a chance to fully become a Marine. So
I get it. I get it. All right. So, wow, there's so much I want to talk to you about. First of all, absolutely great message. And it's interesting. And I want to make this very clear and very upfront, is that, again, I've been doing this for 40 years and I've seen the cycle. And I'll be honest with you, I talked to my agent in the last 6 or 8 months, and I'm like, what's the story? Why are the reads and the auditions so low? And he's going, well, it's because the opportunities aren't just the middle-aged white guy. I'm that guy. And I'm like, all good in the hood. Because the fact of the matter is that your message is not only resonating, but it is the through line at this point. And it's definitely insulting that our industry has existed. Let's go back to the 20s and 30s with Step and Fetch It and all that stuff, and everybody was a slave, and that's all, and Aunt Jemima, and all that stuff that existed. Well, guess what? That didn't really go away, because all it did was sort of under the surface, and then African Americans were playing still sort of subterranean roles, and it's funny because our world, which is interesting because our world has definitely shifted over to realize that everybody should be equal. But the film industry hasn't necessarily. It's like women in film. I deal with a lot of women in film. I always say, if you want a great director, I think sometimes a woman would be the best bet, because they're organized and know what they're doing. They're creative. It's just they've been stifled. So, long way of saying to you, great message. I'm glad you did it.
thank you. Yeah, One of those things where it was really important to me to, kind of put that out there because I get that question a lot. It's like, what makes me different than any other director, any other filmmaker, rather. And, I had to think long and hard about it because, one of the things that I wanted to do was distinguish myself in a very unique way.
Mhm.
And granted, there are a lot of people that can say the same exact thing as me, but in the same breath, I just look at my own personal history and the things that I naturally gravitated towards. And so it was one of those things where I was like, okay, why am I going to fight what I naturally do? Let me just do that and, just go after it.
Yeah. Well, again, I think that's really I commend you for that. But I also love the fact that you grew up kind of like me in the sense that I was always watching. I was looking at Starlog magazines, where I was always like looking up in the sky and Star Wars, and I memorized that boy like straight up all the dialogue. The adventure stuff, the Indiana Jones, the things like that, and you definitely get that you have that through line also seeing like some of the things on your site with the Power Rangers and all the stuff that you've done. And again, I work for Fox Kids, so I'm real familiar with Power Rangers. And so, is that a? I guess the question is that one of the things that started you off going? I would love to do this because, and you kind of say that in your bio film there, but were you really influenced, and was that the thing that clicked it off? What was the film or situation that made you go, I'm going to do this? Do you
So
remember?
I think, yeah, I think it's a couple of different things. Like I mentioned in the video, my father was a very big, he's a very big influence on the decisions that I made and desire to get into this world.
Good.
Because I remember being like knee high to a troll, and him, asking me questions
There's a
about.
film name. There's a film name. Knee high to a troll. Wow. Okay.
I was a small thing. I was like 5 or 6 years old, and he's like, "Hey, we're gonna watch this great film and like break it down." I'm like, "I don't know what this means," but we would sit there and do that for hours and talk about like what made the film amazing for us. And up until my adult life, we would do that for every single movie. And so that was the beginning of wanting to do it for real as a profession. But there was always a, oh, this seems like it's out of reach. I don't know how to get there because I don't have anybody else in my family or network at the time that was doing filming. So I was like, it's a pie in the sky kind of idea, but how do I actually get there? And so I actually went the acting route first. Just trying to get on screen and doing some stuff like that. But that wasn't as successful as I would have hoped it to be. And so I was like, okay,
It's
well,
not
I got
over yet.
to,
It's not over.
yeah.
I looked at you. I'm like, damn, dude's got perfect teeth. He's great on camera. Are you kidding me? He must be an actor. So it's all good. I think there's something coming for you, Hitchcock.
Thank you, man. I appreciate that. It's funny that you mentioned that because the episodic that I just did, episode one, I actually had to play the therapist, and it was one of those things where like I wasn't planning on doing it, but the actor that I hired was like, "Hey, I'm sick. It's COVID." I was like, "Oh crap!" This is
Oh,
like the day of,
stay home.
and so yeah, and that happened. That happened several times. There was another project that I did where like the crew was there, location was set, everybody was like there, and we were waiting on the one guy because it was like a scene with just one actor. And so I was like, okay, he's gonna show up. 10 o'clock is his call time. 10:05 shows up. It's like, hey guy, where you at? I call him, text him, email him, nothing. And so I was like, well, everybody's here, I'm paying for him, so let me just hop in there and do it. And so it was fun, kind of going back into the acting world because I do miss it. And it, being able to kind of step back and be behind the scenes and kind of create the worlds. I kind of get put myself in that situation where I
Yeah.
can still act every now and then.
Well, I'm sorry, but you set us up, and the drama is there. What happened to the dude?
Honestly, I have no
It
idea.
is.
I wish him the best, but I really like I never heard from this guy again, and so I'm hoping that he's okay.
Yeah, no, that's a kind of a typical, in my opinion, a very typical actor response is like, if you can't, then you just kind of like don't show up for work and you're like, I'm done with that job. I got way too many things on my desk. I can't catch up. Bye. Um, but I will say that, yeah, again, I definitely can see that. But I want to ask you the question that you just brought something up that's very interesting, as you said, being in front of the camera again. I get, well, no, you can't get the director yelling at you because you're the director. But the bottom line is that taking the break from it and then coming back and being in front of the camera, would you say, and I have a reason for saying this, that you had a better perspective of what would be needed as an actor when you stepped in front of the camera recently? In other words,
Oh, 100%.
yeah,
Yeah, 100%. I think that, being an actor makes me a better director and vice versa,
yeah,
because I know what it takes to be able to create the scene. And so, understanding that language, understanding what is expected, and understanding how to get from point A to point B. When I first got into directing, one of the first things I did was take an acting class. And the reason why is because I was like, let me understand, what is expected of me as an
yeah,
actor so I can learn how to bring that out of a person. Because like my thing is like, if I'm very much a lead by example kind of person, and so if I can't do it, then I need to
sure,
go back and learn it so that I can so that I can show them. So going through the acting class was a really big eye opening experience because um, it's a lot. It's one of those things where like if you don't know what it takes to emote a scene, like make it so that it's real, because there's a lot of times, especially when I was first getting started working with actors that didn't they were just saying lines, they weren't actually becoming the character,
they
right?
were
And so
acting. They were,
right.
act-
And
yeah,
it's funny that you say that because I call people out. It's like, hey, you're acting. Stop
yeah.
it.
Yeah. No, I get that. I get that, and I bring this up on the show all the time. People are always saying to me, and look, it only took me 40 years, not true, to get this, but they go, "What's the key?" I watched your short that you did that got these awards, and it's like, dude, you're like so real. I'm like, yeah, that's the point. Is that, and I say this over and over again. I'm going to emphasize this, and I want you to sort of back me up, maybe. But when a director has a script in their hand, male or female, and they look at this and they go, oh, I'm going to have these people read for it. They have envisioned of maybe someone that had done something like a De Niro or whatever. But they're not asking for De Niro to come do it. So don't step into this audition and go, I'm going to pretend I'm De Niro. What they want is they want you to be who you are. And that's the key, in my opinion, to successful acting is stop trying to act like someone or trying to facade and just go up there and find the you, because that's why they called you in to read. Whether or not you look at the breakdown and go, oh, well, that's not really me or that's me, they're still bringing you in, which means you either have to look and they're going, I think I can get something, or I'll go a different direction. So my point in this is that stop acting and start being who you are, because that's who they want, and then perfect who you are.
Absolutely. I think one of the best relationships on set is the one between the actor and the director, and the reason why is because like I can go in there with a certain thing in mind, it's like, oh, it needs to be X, Y, and Z, and then we have this phenomenal actor come in and do something completely different, and we're like, yes. That is exactly what we were looking for. We just didn't know it until we saw it. And so I would have never seen that if that person was trying to be somebody else. And so I always encourage actors to come in and do it the way that they want to. Like for any kind of casting call, for example, I don't ever say, I want you to do it, do it this way. Come in and do it your way
Yeah,
so I can see what you have to bring to the table. Because you could do something that I wasn't even thinking about that would make the character that much more amazing. And
right.
I want that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Well, I mean, again, when you give an actor a starting point and you just say, look, you can see in the breakdown that I'm looking for a guy who's your age and looks like you and so on. And so you, by looking at that as an actor, you go, okay, so I'm going to be the guy next door, the neighbor, blah, 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 blah. But by not coloring in all the shades of it, you allow us to be able to go, well, this is kind of what I gathered from it. And you're like, wow, okay. Well, I like this, but throw a little bit, you know what I mean? You have a starting point. You don't take clay and hand it to someone and go, well, wait a minute, that's a dog. Oh yeah, I thought I'd start you off. Do you?
Right.
No. You go, hey, let's see what we can do. Let me ask you, next question I want to ask you is that what is, because you've been doing this for technically how long?
So I graduated film school 2013 and then kind of got my first job in 2014. So was that 7 years?
Yeah, a while. Okay, so what, in your opinion, and this can be either positive or negative, doesn't matter, and we'll talk about the negative and the positive. What is your in opinion since you started, whether it's technical or people or whatever, what's the biggest change or frustration or positive thing that you've seen since you started?
Hmm.
Think about that.
That's a great question. Um, I think overall the thing that is kind of standing out to answer that question is just how self-reliant a person has to be, and I didn't know that going in, because I thought it was like, okay, I get my degree, I'm top of my class, I'm gonna go and direct an Avengers film, right out of school. Nah, it didn't work that way, and
Didn't you?
so yeah, exactly. Like, wake up, buddy. This is not how it works.
It, it's all good. I keep thinking to myself that look, A-lister, I got to get into the alphabet. Anyway, go ahead.
No, it's funny, but I think one of the things that has changed my perception really is just the demands of the job and being able to move forward. Because the thing that I really struggled with initially was how do I get in,
Hmm.
and once I was in, how do I stay in? Because you could be the most talented person on earth, you could have the best reel, the best equipment, the best X, Y, and Z, whatever. But if nobody knows who you are, then
Yeah.
too bad, you're not going to work. And so it was funny because like I don't really consider myself a shy person, but I hate networking. And so being out there and saying, hey, I can do this, and talking about me, that's something that I struggle with. And that's one of the reasons why
Yeah.
I made that video, because it forced me to talk about what made me and why people should like me. And I think, to answer your question, I think that for me is the biggest eye-opening experience, because I don't want to say there's anything positive, negative, or anything. It's all a journey and an experience, right?
It-
There's always going to be ups and downs, whatever, and you just got to take it and kind of adjust. But in the same breath, this whole process has kind of really educated me on who I really am, and one as a person, but also as a filmmaker, and why people should pay attention to what I do and how I say it.
you kind of, in my opinion, you got me thinking about entrepreneurial, being an entrepreneur, and how this industry has uh, morphed into more of independent film and less big network. But the other thing is that you also made me think about what I call jumping into the fire, which is actors always tell me, they go, hey, wow, you're very funny, very, you can improv, blah blah blah. And I go, well, it's because when I was younger I was a professional clown, a magician. That's what I am. And then and I decided to go into Chevy's, El Torito's, Applebee's. I was poor as, and I'm like a performer, and I'm like, I gotta make some money. So I went out there, and I'm a balloon artist, not a clown, just a regular dude. And I would go table to table, and people would go, why would you do that? It's so stressful. I went, that's why I did it. Because it's the same thing that you're saying is that when you get into this business, I'm telling you, in my opinion, the people that succeed are the people that jump into the fire, not sit back and watch the building burn down, because that's just a spectator, my friend. And the fact is that if you do that stuff, you won. Ultimately, if you keep on it, I think you're going to succeed. And then ultimately, you're going to learn what you do best and what you don't do best. And that's where personally I came up recently in the last, you know 10 years, going teams. You create teams of people that are really good at, like Sal, man, I can my head would explode if I tried. He shows me spreadsheets, and I'm like, dude, I don't even know what you're talking about. And,
Hmm.
and but he's watching the show right now, but the oprime.tv, and he shows me all this stuff. And like, anyway, it's about continuously adding on your skills, I think.
Well, I think you just nailed it, nail it, whatever the phrase is, but
Yeah,
you nailed it. Because when I first got started, it was just me. I was trying to do everything because one, budget, just
yeah,
it was that thing, but also I was the kind of person who was like, I can do it all, so I'm going to do it. But as I got further entrenched in the thing and I started working on bigger projects, I was like, I realized quickly how much better the project was when it wasn't just me, when I had people that are specialized in what
yeah,
they're amazing at. And then to your point, as far as building the team, you want to surround yourself, and this is exactly what I did. I wanted to surround myself with people that were better than me at what they did. That way, the whole project just made it that much better.
yeah. Absolutely. I mean, honestly, that's why families consist of more than one person. You know, let me ask you, what's the logo on your hat?
Oh, this is Iron Man. So you have
Oh,
the
there it is.
yeah,
You are a fan.
a little bit, just a little
Yeah.
bit.
Well, I worked. You know, I did a commercial, a cell phone commercial. It was pretty funny. Really quickly, as I over on at Warner Brother a lot. It was a union thing. I'm FICOR, what we call, both. Anyway, and the fact is that we walked on set and they go, "Hey, you're the principal guy. You're going to be out there doing stuff." But there's one guy that's higher than you. I'm like, "Okay, cool." We did costume fitting. We showed up. All the other principals were there, and they go, "Will, did you hear who's doing the movie? I mean, they're doing the commercial." I went, "No." And they go, "Look." And we looked over and I'm like, what the that's Robert Downey Jr. And I'm like,
No way.
I'm not a real big, I don't want anybody's, I don't, you know what? We do this
Yeah,
business. My opinion is the reason why you're not Spielberg yet is one, time, and two, just a matter of time. Anyway, but so we walked on set and we're doing our thing. And then they go, "Hey, we want you all to meet him." What a regular guy. He was very
yeah.
funny, of course, but I actually have it in my demo. You're going to see it in a second. But I was like, well, this is kind of awesome. So
That's
one of the only people physically that I would like to meet as an actor, because I'm a big fan of Chaplin and blah blah blah. But anyway, he was a pretty cool dude. So let me ask you: did the name Light Hawk come in play? How did that? It seems like it's two different things. One thing, or maybe you went to somewhere and you went, "Oh, this is an idea." How did it get there?
So Lighthawk came about because of a couple of things. One, with filmmaking, you need light to be able to tell your story, right? And so, but also, light can be things being easy and that sort of thing. And
Oh,
that's where the hawk comes in, because whenever you look at a hawk, the way that it attacks its prey, it starts up way up high and then it dives down to the surface to grab it and then take off. And that's kind of the way that I approach every single project, because like I need to start out high and get an idea of where I'm going and what the goal is before I start diving into the details. And so that's where the name came from.
and I know there's some sci-fi in there, and I know
Of
there
course.
is, because I'm not gonna lie to you, Ty. I honestly think that you really probably should have grown like your superhero thing going on. Like you should be, yeah, like they're gonna call you up, and they're gonna call me up too, by the way. But
Yeah, man.
the bottom line is that I know that someday they're gonna go like, "Hey, I know you really love directing." Oh, so here's a good question. I know you really love directing and putting that together. But what if they came up to you and said, "Hey, it's either acting or directing, and by the way, we want you to do one of the Avengers, and we're going to create a person called the Lighthawk." Would you do it and give up
In a heart
directing?
in a heartbeat, because the whole point of acting is to get myself out there. And so you got plenty of actors that direct as well. So if I can get on an Avengers movie at that level where I'm like a feature person. And it's funny too, because that kind of brings you back to my roots anyway, because you mentioned like the Power Rangers thing. I did that when I was working at Disney. I was actually one of the Power Rangers, and so I got to wear the spandex and have the muscles and all that kind of stuff, and do all the crazy stuff. And then I did Darth Maul as well, and so I got to
Oh
learn all
wow!
the yeah, so I got to do that kind of character, and do all the martial arts, do all the training for it, and all that kind of stuff, and do the quarter staff. And so being in that world again, it would be like I said, the only reason why I stopped doing it was because it just wasn't making any money, and I needed money at the time.
Yeah,
And the end goal was always to direct anyway, so it's just kind of a circular way of getting to the end goal anyway.
wow. Uh, I want to take a break and talk to the actors and creators out there for a second. Can you hang out with us for a little bit?
Absolutely.
All right, hang tight. All right, we're going to take a small little break. I want to talk to the actors, and I said this earlier, um, that, oh, by the way, Ty Hunt, and I think that you are probably watching this and enjoying the hell out of this, because I am, really appreciate everything he has to say. You know, I love having like minded people on the show. Not that I don't like get someone on and go, "Oh gosh, what are they talking about?" I don't. But the point is that, you get to talking to folks and you go, "I'd like to hang out with this person." So that's a good thing. You should always be around those people, by the way, not the other people going, "Oh God, there's a guy sitting in the corner just texting all the time." Not me. Anyway, so actors, I said this in the beginning about how people were complaining all the time. They talk about how they can't get out there and get, what are they going to do? Your job Anybody in this industry is, in my opinion, a little bit of guerrilla marketing. And that means that you have to do things a little bit differently, because the fact is that when you listen to success stories, most of the time you'll hear about the struggle or something people went through or didn't go through and they needed to go through, whatever the case may be. So, I was faced with this a while back, and what I did was I came up with an idea. First of all, I always knew that I was going to try things differently and try to do some guerrilla marketing. And here's my attempt. I put that together a little ad, and you might have seen this before, but the ad looked like it was a furniture thing saying, "Hey, casting directors, if you want to succeed, click here." And it looked like they were going to buy like furniture for their studio. And when they click it, and I put this on several places and AdWords and so on, it would come up with a video that looked like this. Hang tight. Hey, thanks for clicking the banner. Now, I know you're dying to know what it is that makes a successful casting office or director or production. And the answer is actors. See, you can have a great script, great casting director, a director, producer, but here's the problem. You always need good actors. To be or not to be. But let's face it, there's way too many of us. And we can't market to you, which is odd considering that they call it show business, and that means that there's business in the show. We can't call you. We can't send you an email. We just submit to the breakdowns like the other 4,800 that submitted to you on that casting call, with no action-packed pitch letter, sales letter, and all we do is stand in line and remain quiet. Let's be honest. Lines are for Starbucks, not for careers. If I still have your attention, I want you to watch this next 46-second video. Now don't go away, because there's a quiz after this.
Detective Gennaro, I need to speak with Rex Wilson.
Rex is already out there on the speedway for his practice run.
You know what I mean.
Now let me shoot your shotgun.
Here, cool it down.
Just like your old man, huh? Is there a problem, soldier? I'm asking you a question, Lieutenant.
Running in clown shoes.
This is gonna be fun.
Time! What if they need more time? That wasn't so painful. And I even saw a couple of you laughing. So if you like what you saw, operators are standing by.
Yeah, Will Roberts
he's an
is
A-lister
great.
for sure.
Oh, you want to book him?
That's my agent. And if you didn't like my approach, well, I'm Daniel Craig, and I hope you enjoyed this commercial. So that was created in an iPhone 11 Plus. It doesn't really matter. The point is that I did it all there, and I'm able to kind of on the fly, kind of a news reporter called, dry cut stuff and put it together. But you can do this. You can put these things together. I created what I'm calling a 46-second flash demo. Because you have the normal ones. Like every actor sends me their thing and goes, "Take a look at my demo." I'm like, for the love of God, it's 6 minutes long. You got to remember that they're not going to, like, if you put all your shit in your demo and you got funny and serious, that remember, they're going to be looking at it to try to figure out, and if you're there, if it's a comic role and that's at the end, you ain't going to make it to the end. So you really have to do as much guerrilla marketing as you can. That's the important thing, and that's the tip I want to give you. All right, going back in. Ty, welcome back to the show. There you are. Let's talk a little bit about philosophy, life,
Okay.
the industry, your company. How many people you have working with you in your company?
So internally, we have 3 people, small but mighty, and then depending upon the size of the project, we'll bring on our below the line contractors.
What's going on right now? What's a big or a project in general? What's going on?
Honestly, right now we're dark because I just literally brought into, well, my wife did, but we're introducing the world to our first daughter, so we're dark this month.
Congratulations!
Thank you.
Are. I have a 7 and 10-year-old. Dude, you are not going to sleep for the next 20 years. Easy.
Man, I'm already there. Like, it's so funny. Like, this last week, she came. Her birthday was the 5th of October, so last Tuesday. And like, I feel like I've gotten like an hour. Yeah, the first one. Yeah. And I feel like I've gotten maybe like an hour or 2 of sleep for like the entire week.
Yeah, I know I worked for Cirque du Soleil in Vegas and doing a show, 2 shows a night, 5 days a week. When my daughter was born, and I'd get home at like 11 or 12, and I was kind of amped up. So I'm like, I'll take care of her, sweetheart. And here I am with my little girl. And she's, yeah. And I'm like, this is where I learned that the more you shake them, but you have to have the right shake, and you put noise in
Mhm.
the background. And I'm sitting there like at 2 in the morning going, God, I gotta sleep, man. Anyway, so I feel for you. I didn't realize throughout this whole thing, you are dealing with the fact that you probably are still having to check. It's your first, so I know my.
Yeah,
I was always in there going, looking at their chest, making sure they're
yeah.
breathing and stuff.
That was that was literally me last night. I swallowed her, and like it's like, is it too tight? Can she breathe? Is she gonna get loose or whatever? And I'm just like, dude, go to sleep. She's
You
fine.
mean the burrito baby, the wrap?
Yeah, yeah, yep.
Yeah, I have to be honest with you. I was like, we got a monitor, and I'm like, man, what the hell's the difference? Why don't I just sleep in my child's room? Because I'm just
Hmm.
tripping. And you know what? I always think of the Will Smith song, "Just the Two of Us."
Yeah.
I listened to that before I had a kid, and I dig it anyway because that's my style of music. But
Hmm.
when my kid was born, I became a mess. Listen to
Yeah,
that. Go,
man.
yeah, I get it. I get it. So congratulations. What's your child's name?
Thank you. Her name is Nyla Jade.
Nyla. Yeah, that's an awesome name. So what
Thank you.
is your wife working with you in the company?
She is. She's one of my producers.
Wow. If you don't mind me asking, did you meet on the job? Because my wife and I met when I was at Fox TV doing the Kids Club, and I stalked her. But it's not stalking if you're not arrested, right? It's not
Of
stalking if
course.
you're not arrested, right?
Exactly.
Okay. So how did you meet?
So we actually are high school sweethearts. We met, yeah,
Wow.
1996 is when we first met, and then fast forward, ups and downs like any relationship, and then we decided to get married once I graduated from college. And it's funny, I always tell this story because I was like, she's like, hey, we've been together for like a billion years. Why aren't we getting married yet? And I was like, dude, I gotta finish my degree, and then it took me like 20 years to finish my degree, and so it took us a while to get married, and I get to take the blame on that one, but.
You're
But yeah,
lucky
she
she waited. You're lucky she
was
waited.
that
You're lucky she
no,
waited.
dude. I tell her that all the time. It's like I can't believe that she waited that long for me because like she's the reason why we're doing the stuff that we're doing. Because like I'm very much the creative person and she's very much the hey, how are you actually going to do this kind of person.
Yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
so I'm very thankful that she was able to be a part of the company for one, but also part of my team just personally to
Yeah.
help me get to point A to point B.
Yeah. Let me ask you, anything in the future that you're thinking that you can tell us at all that might be on the roster? Thoughts?
Yeah. So we're actually about to release that episodic that I mentioned earlier, where I had to play the therapist. We're going to release that later this month, once we get past the other baby duties. We've been working on that one for a while, and so that's going to be a fun, like comedy drama kind of thing. We actually have another episodic that we're working on as well. It's action superhero adventure kind of deal,
All
and so
right.
that's going to be fun. And that it's funny because like we're actually building a prequel story that's going to lead up to the bigger series. And so, because again, budget, especially on the independent side, you got to
Yeah.
figure out how to make stuff work. And
Yeah.
so, yeah, we found a story that we can tell on the smaller scale for the superhero one. That'll get us to the bigger one once we get a little bit bigger of an audience for that particular project.
Are you thinking that would be a proof of concept, or just build something and then get the eyes to it, and and I say sort of social media viral attempt, as opposed to making a concept part and then sending it to people going, can I have some money?
Yeah, it's a little bit of both, because we're creating a new world, and like any new world, it's going to be we got to start from ground zero as far
Yeah.
as who the audience is, and so this particular version, the prequel side, is going to actually be part of building the audience, and it's going to be easier in terms of the financial burden on us to be able to produce it, so that we can build that audience, so that once we get to the budget that we need to for the bigger one, the audience is already there and they're waiting for it.
Right. Okay, last question I want to ask you. Thanks for hanging out with me for a little extra here.
Of course,
It's
man.
been
This has been fun.
it's been awesome, and I really appreciate everything that you have. You have an awful lot of diversity and you have a lot of depth, and I really appreciate it. And I'm not just saying that because you're on the show, because if you weren't, it would have been over 10 minutes ago. But the fact is that I want to ask you your philosophy. Now, it could be life, it could be film, it could be pretty much anything, because you have lots of different levels of your onion. So I want to ask you if there's anything that you're extremely passionate about, that you this is your, I call it free advice. It's the best four-letter word in the English language, free. So want to get any free advice you can having to do with anything. It could be the business, it could be whatever you want, but this is your time to talk about that.
So I think the best way to answer that is, if you have a goal, go after it, no matter what. There's always going to be a reason not to do it. There's always going to be some kind of obstacle and hurdle that you have to overcome. But at the end of the day, if all you can think about when you wake up is achieving this goal, then you have to go do it. So that's item one. And then item two is get your money in order. You know, one of the things about this world is that it is a business. And so if you don't have the money to do the things that you need to do, you got to get that squared away, because it's going to prevent you from moving forward. And that's something that I've personally dealt with on, pretty much every single project that I've done. And what I've learned is there's always a way. You may not have all the money to do, Avengers level type stuff, but can you do, kind of Avengers level stuff? See where you are, from a financial standpoint, and just do and stay in that. And then once you finish with that, move up to the next level, and so on and so forth. Because everything is a growth process, and I think that you have to do those processes, those different levels, in order to get to your main goal. But if you never do it because the obstacle is too far away, or it's seemingly impossible, then you're never going to get it. And then what sense does that make?
Absolutely. Wow. Ty Hunt, I appreciate you coming on. I will probably try to convince you to come on again. If you
Anytime,
man. Yeah, you bet. Anytime you have something coming up, please let us know. This is what it's all about. Hang tight in the green room. I want to say goodbye to you, but let me finish up with the show here really quickly. All right, everybody. Hey, that's the show, filmfestivallive.com. Of course, remember oprime.tv. That is that's our dad. And he pretty much he keeps everything rolling and strolling and going. I think today, again, one of the good things I appreciate about today and Ty and, our conversation is that there isn't a doubt. I mean, when you look at people and listen to people talk, sometimes you kind of go, I don't know if they totally believe that. I absolutely believe everything that Ty is saying, and I appreciate the fact that we had this really good conversation. I try to bring out conversations that are a little bit more than just like, hey, here, let's talk about the industry, whatever. I mean, and you can do that, and you can go find that show. But what I really think is important, because, they say this all the time, and it is true, I hate to admit it, is that every once in a while, you kind of have to take a break from the showbiz parts of your life and be able to have a life. I know now Ty doesn't have a choice because he's got a 1-year-old. and it could be because I'll tell you that sometimes my wife will say to me, she goes, sometimes I think your career is more important than the family. I'm like, not at all. I promise. But the point is that, we live in this industry. If you don't live to strive, then you live to die. And the bottom line is that this is what you need to do this. And if you don't look, it's okay. If you don't know how to shoot, if you don't know how to edit, if you don't know how to do all these things, you either learn them or you are lucky and you're a trust fund kid and you have someone do them for you. But that's rare in this industry. So all I'm saying to you, and I know that the same thing that Ty is saying with this, is that go out and do it. Even if it's incremental, go do something to make you feel good about yourself every single day. And by the way, if anybody tells you that you can't do it, do this to them. All right. You enjoy the show. We'll see you next time on the show. Of course, filmfestivallive.com, and we're out.
Uh-huh.